Hi, I'm Dubber. I'm the director of Music Tech Fest, and this is the MTF podcast. Now, it's evolved a lot over the years. We've introduced labs, the MTF Research Symposium, MTF Sparks, the Trackathon, the Industry Commons Foundation, and a whole lot more. But at the heart of MTF is always the MTF community. In fact, something we've always said about Music Tech Fest is that it's not so much a festival with a community, it's more a community with a festival. And someone who's not only been an important part of that community, but has also taken that idea of community in music tech and run with it at both a grand and a national scale is Matthias Strobel, founder and president of Music Tech Germany, which represents the common interests of hardware, software, and service providers in the field of music technology from Germany, both at home and abroad. Now, Matthias' story takes us from German boys' choirs to refugee camps, through the extreme highs and catastrophic lows of the world of music tech startups, and into a bright future of open source technologies, enhanced reality, and music-making tools for people with Parkinson's disease, for instance. I caught up with Matthias over coffee in Berlin not so long ago. In fact, listening back, maybe we'd both had a little more coffee than was absolutely necessary, so do try to keep up. Sitting at a table in the courtyard of the cafe at the Michelberger Hotel, this is Matthias Strobel. Matthias Strobel, thank you so much for joining us for the MTF podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with what you're doing at the moment, the German Music Tech Network. How did that come about? What's it for?
So Music Tech Germany started in July 2017, during the time when I was working for Music Tech Fest, and I went to Music Tech Fest already with Nagel in 2013 and in 2015, and then I joined Music Tech Fest in Berlin in 2016, was it right? Yeah. So, and I knew a lot of people in music tech worldwide, but I haven't had a community myself, and working with Music Tech Fest and seeing all these people being super engaged and learning from each other and having this ecosystem mindset is something that that really showed me that there's more to it. And that's something that I always thought. Music Tech Fest has such a big community of all these people. The thing is that it's not only music tech people, it's a community of innovators that come from all different spaces, which makes it hard to unite them all the time. But I think the Music Tech Fest community, they're such big lovers of Music Tech Fest, and they have such a strong relationship to Music Tech Fest. And a lot of people I've spoken to told me that Music Tech Fest changed their life, actually. So I think if Music Tech Fest would have the bandwidth and the people to cater more about the community, that would be super awesome, because it's one thing to do an event every year, and I know it's hard to keep the thing going over the year, but it would be great to have a kind of a system or a network or a structure where the Music Tech Fest community could connect with each other more often than just once in a year. And that's something that kind of brought me to launch Music Tech Germany, because I thought, okay, I can't do it on a scale like Music Tech Fest, but I can at least do it in Germany. So that's one thing that I also tried with Music Tech Germany, to build a community of music tech innovators in Germany and give them an opportunity to connect with each other on a regular basis.
Right, because your focus was always on the sort of the networking aspect of it. And I know there was something really interesting you said, and I wonder if you can remember that you said it even, at MTF in Stockholm, which was the experience that you had of being somebody who was at Music Tech Fest but not organizing Music Tech Fest, and how that was different for you.
I mean, Music Tech Fest in Berlin was a hell of a job, and it was a hell of work. And with all the other Music Tech Fest labs where we went to, there was always something I had to do. And at MTF Stockholm, that's the first time that I actually had time to mingle with all the old friends, to meet all these people, to see their inventions, to talk with them, to get more insight. Because I also meet these people only at a Music Tech Fest. And so for me, it was really something that I enjoyed so much. So being at Music Tech Fest without having a job there was the best experience I had ever at Music Tech Fest, obviously, because you have the time to experience all the stuff that happens there. And I could exchange with the people who work there, who bring their stuff there, and I could learn more about the technology and their approaches to different things. So for me, that was the most valuable thing, was to be able to talk to people and have a good time.
And they're great people.
Yeah, and they're all awesome people. That's actually another thing. I never met any asshole at a Music Tech Fest. There might be some introverted people that have a hard time talking to you, but they're just geniuses and live out of the spectrum, but what they're doing is amazing. But they're also lovely and super great people. And also you have also these outgoing people, but every single one that's there has something that makes them unique and makes them a talent in their space. So that's I don't know how this always happens, but kind of Music Tech Fest only attracts people that are cool. So, and before that, I founded a startup called Nagual Sounds in 2011. And while I was running this startup with my co-founders, we traveled the world and we met a lot of other music tech startups. And what I discovered is that there's a lot of music tech people out there that have heard from each other but don't know each other. It was kind of a shame that so many people are working on the same solutions and don't learn from the failures of the others or see the synergies that they would have with each other. And so in order to make collaborations easier, I wanted to actually start a music tech association in Berlin. But Berlin is kind of like, so the Senate of Berlin was not really open to what I wanted to do because they said they didn't see the purpose for it, which is a general problem not only in Germany, I guess, that technology and digitization is always looked at from the wrong side when you talk about creative industries and creativity. But I got a contact to someone from the from the Ministry of Economics. And I went to them and told them, hey, I want to set up this music tech association because the creative industries and the digital economy, they can't be looked at separately in the future, or not at all, because the digital space already happens in the creative industry. So I told them that I'm planning to do this association, and if I get their support for that. So, and they were super open for it, and they said, yeah, that's definitely something that we need. So I decided to start Music Tech Germany, which is a federal association for music technology in Germany, which is the first one worldwide, which doesn't make it easy to set it up and to get the word out. But all the other music tech networks that I'm connected with in Europe and all around the world, they were super happy about doing that and said, hey, we need to do this in our country as well in order to have like different dots that we can connect with each other worldwide. So what we're doing right now is we have like this association where we it's built on 4 pillars. The first pillar is like that we connect all the music tech innovators and music tech organizations in Germany with each other. It's not only startups and companies, it's also research institutions, artists and individual people who work in the space of music tech. The second pillar is that we are the point of contact for the traditional music industry, which comes to us and asks about future trends and technology that they can apply to their artists or use for like getting the artists to grow. And the third one is that we're lobbying with the German government, because what I discovered when I run Nagual Sounds is that we applied for art funding and it was mostly too technical, and when we applied for tech funding it was too arty, so we were always in this gap. And in order to change that, we talk a lot to politicians and tell them to set up new public funding structures in order to help music technology to evolve and help startups to build their product and get it done, because like for VCs and investors it's always a risky business to invest in early stage startups, and public funding is really badly needed in order to help these people to survive. And the fourth one is that we open up, we open the doors for other music tech markets in Europe and all around the world, since we're connected to all these other music tech networks, and help the people from Germany who work in music tech to find collaborators worldwide.
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack in there. So we just start with one of the things you said right up front, which was that people in the government were looking at music tech from the wrong side. What do you mean by looking at this from the wrong side?
For them, like, creativity is for them something that comes from the inside of an artist, and technology is something that takes creativity away from artistry. So for them it has always been seen as something bad that destroys creativity. But when you talk to artists that work with technology, which every artist does, they will always tell you, no, technology is something that we need, and technology is something that helps us to helps our music to evolve and to grow. So and to make them understand that technology is not something bad was the biggest pain point at the beginning.
Wow, because a violin is a piece of technology.
A microphone is one, a guitar is one, so everything is a technology.
Yeah, for sure. Where did this start for you? Let's sort of go back. How did you get into first music and second technology? What was your sort of origin story?
So my first point of contact with music was when I was 5. My mother made me to learn piano. And I didn't want to do that back in the days, because as a 5-year-old child, you want to do other things. But she thought that's something that takes me off the streets, and it's good to have like a music education. It kind of like learns me how to be disciplined and all that stuff. It didn't quite work out, But after, like when I was 7, she sent me to a boys choir called Regensburger Domspatzen, which is like, back in that days, it was like one of the most famous boys choirs in the world, and it was led by the Catholic Church, and it was all fucked up. And but I learned a lot about discipline and all that stuff there, and I had like a lot of music theory and all these classes that other people would only do when they study, but I had it already back in the days. And so when I was in 7th grade, I dropped out of this boys choir and went back home. From that day on, I never touched the piano and I never sang, because this whole experience that I had there destroyed all that. But my love for music always kept me there. So I continued listening to music, started DJing, a lot of digging. I have a lot of friends who do music. I exchange a lot of music with people. And I started something totally different, an apprenticeship as a German TV station, and then I studied business communication, and I wrote my bachelor thesis about the opportunities for independent artists in the digital age on the example of drum and bass. Mm-hmm. And this was the first kind of like point where I got into like this whole technology space, where I discovered, okay, there's so much potential through technology for artists to be more creative, to have an economic income, and to grow and to get the word out. So technology is not something bad. And and then I went to India for half a year, came back, wanted to do something totally different. And on a coincidence, my girlfriend came and said, hey, I have these friends who are all artists, who are like a classical composer and a techno music producer, and they created this kind of thing where you have a Kinect camera and you can create music through your dance moves, and they think it would be great if you could open up to other people as well. So, but they don't have any business experience, if I could help them. So, and this is how Nagual Sound started, and yeah.
Tell me about Nagual Sounds. What was the journey? Obviously, there was some major success. It had awards for best startup at MTF and all these sorts of things. What was the trajectory? Because I'm not even sure where Nagual is today.
It's bankrupt.
Right. Okay. So, which is probably why it's been quiet. So talk me through the journey.
So in 2011, I joined these guys, and when I first entered the room where the Kinect camera was set up, there was like a dancer, and she danced and the music was created, but I couldn't make sense of how the music was created and what was done. But I was so amazed that it was actually possible to just create music out of the air. So I was like, okay, fuck, this is such an amazing out of this world shit. I definitely want to be part of that. So I started writing business plans with them. We started to develop a kind of a product strategy, and we weren't sure where we're going with that, but we thought, okay, when we're doing something with the Kinect, then we do something that takes place on the Xbox, because the Kinect was connected to the Xbox back in the days. But the whole underlying technology was that we have a patent on that, or we had a patent on that, is that we could translate any kind of data stream into tonal musical structures in real time. So the data that was generated by the Kinect camera could be translated into musical structures through our technology. So what happened was that we could assign different instruments to your arms and legs, and you could play the instruments through your movements. So it was all about speed and position of your limbs. So the upper notes would be when you are up with your hands, and the lower notes would be when you're down with your hands and you move them. And so we started to apply for the Kinect to develop for the Xbox, and we finally managed that. And at that point, we were super happy about it, until we discovered that with the development for Xbox comes certain regulations. And one regulation was that you have to have a competition in a battle mode, which means you have to collect points, which then eventually ends up in being like a second Just Dance or Dance Central game, where you just have to follow choreographies and not be creative at all. And that was totally not in our mindset.
Right.
So, but on a coincidence, we met a guy who worked at a hospital. And he said, hey, I'm working with stroke patients and I want to do evaluation with your stuff. And because to give stroke patients in their rehab time an auditive feedback on the exercises might increase their motivation to do the exercises. So we started doing this with him, but then he got kicked out of the hospital. So we kind of like missed that chance. And in the meantime, because my job is business communications, I applied for a lot of pitches. I did a quite okay job when it comes to marketing. So we were in all these TV shows, and we got like invited to lots of different conferences, and we won all the pitches and awards and all that stuff. But all this fame kept like the development from being done and a product being finished. And we kind of managed to get funding from an investor, but we burned all the money during this like journey on going to festivals and all that stuff. And so at the end, we were there without any money and with a lot of fame and with no product. But I decided to work for another 2 years on social welfare just to get this thing off the ground. But in 2015, I discovered that it just doesn't work out. When you start a startup with like other co-founders, that everybody has his own vision on a thing, and there's like certain people missing in the team, then it's hard to get the thing done. And it's sad because the technology that we developed could be used today in all different kind of spaces. It's kind of like procedural audio, so in games and all that stuff, it would make total sense. So my idea was to license it and give it to people who actually know how to build products. But yeah, we never did that. And so I ended up leaving the company in 2015, doing something totally different. And my co-founders, like the two that were left, found a guy, they kind of pivoted and decided, okay, if we can take any kind of data stream, we use the gyro sensor and accelerator sensor in the smartphone and use that in order to create music with it. So we ended up creating an app for the German Parkinson Association, and that app is still out there to help Parkinson patients who have a tremor to concentrate on making music with their hands, and apparently the tremor got less when they're doing that. But this evaluation also was never finished because as I said a couple of weeks ago, we had to file bankruptcy because there was no money left, and everybody was exhausted, or the two people who were left were totally exhausted and decided to rather shut down the company.
Right. So what would you say is the Nago lesson?
Oh, the Nago lesson is to choose your right team, and everybody should stick to the skills that they have and be open to opinions of other people, and do only the stuff that you are capable of doing, and don't do stuff that you're not capable of doing. And the second one is that don't stick to a product strategy at the beginning without talking to the people who are building the product too. First talk to the people and ask them if they actually want that, and if they want that, you have to create it. That's basically the biggest lesson that I had.
Sounds like you're taking some hard lessons to the startups that you're working with the Music Tech Network.
Yeah, that's what we're trying. I'm trying to talk to all these people and explain them, hey, there's you can have a vision and you can have a dream of out of your own passion, and it's super important to have that, but you always need to talk to the people who are building stuff too, and also stay open-minded to other potential use cases that you would have not thought of, and always be aware of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and don't run down every rabbit hole that comes along. You really need to consider if it makes sense to you at the certain point of development that you are right now, or if you're not. So it's always this: listen to people and collaborate with people who have more experience than you.
Right. It sounds like something I hear a lot in music tech startups. One is, I've got this great idea for how people can make music. No idea whether people will want to buy it or not, but this is the great idea, and I'm going to make it because it's and the sort of the sustainability angle of that. But also, there's this plus we think it can help people, and here is this kind of medical application for it, and so on. There seems to be this real drive in so many music tech companies. First of all, of this is a great new way to make music, and second of all, and here's how it can help people. But the kind of the starting a business side of it seems to be the problem point there. Is it ever a good idea to start a music tech company?
It depends. I mean, if you there's these two kind of people. There's two people. There's one kind of people that are trying to solve a problem that's out there, and they think they have the solution for that. And then there's the people who build something out of a passion. And what people told us when we were at Medium Lab, one of the jury guys told us that we have built a solution and we're looking for the problem. And this is something that happens often for people who build something out of passion. And I think if you have the bandwidth and the financial background and the time and the mindset to survive for a long time, then it makes total sense to build something out of a passion, because you do what you like. If you don't have that, I would rather not do it. And if you build a solution for something, then that's what I said before, is talk to the people who are building the solution too and build it with them together, which is a big problem, because if you build something for the music industry, then you have to talk with the music industry about the solution that you're building. And the music industry usually only listens once you are successful. If you build something for artists, you can start with an artist from the beginning on, because artists are always curious about new stuff. They love to build stuff, and they're not capable of building it themselves. So building for the music industry is something I would never recommend to anyone. Building for artists and creativity, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I've heard before people say if you want to make a small fortune in the music industry, start with a large one.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually correct. Yeah.
Right. But then the sort of the helping people thing kind of took over, because you went very, very heavily into working with refugees. Do you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was in 2015 when I had the break from Nagual. I decided to do something totally different, and we had this refugee situation in Berlin that was totally messed up because of, everybody knows that the German government kind of like opened up the doors without having a plan, and so the kind of like the society had to take care of stuff. And so I decided, since I used to live in an area that was not actually. There were not a lot of refugees back in the days, but we wanted to build a help refugee initiative to collect stuff and to go to camps and help these people. But it ended up our area ended up to open to have also 2 camps to be opened up, but they didn't have anyone to lead it. And since I was like leading this this Refugee Help association, they asked me if I want to lead this camp, and I said I actually don't know if I want to do that, because it's such a big responsibility to take care of 160 people and from all different backgrounds, different religions, different so everything totally weird. But then in the end, they couldn't find anyone, and the decision had to be made in 4 days. So I agreed to do it for half a year, and I did it for half a year, and it was probably the biggest management challenge in my whole life. I learned so much about myself, and I learned also so much about treatment of other people, because it was such a weird experience. Because I mean, with having no experience working with people and having knowledge about laws and stuff that you could place into action and stuff like that. So I had to deal with everything off the ground, and with like 160 people coming into a sports hall with nothing on their, without any, all they had is like a plastic bag with stuff, and they now had to find their place in our democratic system. And we had a lot of families coming in, so the biggest mistake that I did at the beginning was that I left them alone for the first 2 weeks, and because I thought they all have families and they came all the way from Syria and Iraq and everywhere to our sports hall, so they have survived so such a long way, so they know how to survive. So I just left them the way they are until a guy came, and it was a big mess. There was like fights everywhere going on, Shiites, Sunnis, this, that. So I had no idea about all the religious fights in between. And but one of the smart guys, an IT professor from Syria, from Damascus, came to me and said, look, like we are from like 8 different countries, but what we all have in common is that we never had anything else than dictatorship. So you're trying to teach us democracy without actually teaching it us, and you're just like expecting us to be able to live democracy. We need rules, we need punishment, we are used to that. So in my mindset, I needed to change my mindset and to set up rules to punish people, to send people out to like be an asshole, which I usually don't. But that was the only way it worked, and people accepted that. And over the time, I could implement like more and more democratic features. So at the end, everybody was happy, I guess, and everybody understood how we live in Germany. So that was quite an experience, and there was lots of other things. So everything that you can imagine that happens in a country, on a society, happened on a small scale there. Everything from everything.
Has the kind of the overall situation on that front improved?
Yeah, we definitely have like now people in, I mean, there's still people, there's nobody living in camps anymore. People are kind of like living in housing situations with the German people. They're kind of like all integrated. The ones that, like the sad story also was that when I was running the camp, there was really like well-educated people that had to live in a sports hall like animals, and quite a few of them, they rather flew back to Iraq and lived in a war zone than being treated like an animal. So that was the sad story. And the people who really couldn't go back and didn't have a future there, they stayed here. And most of them put a lot of effort in like being integrated, learned the language, and a lot of them have jobs now. So it all got really well. And the whole crime rate thing and everything that everybody was talking about never happened, because the last thing that these people wanted is like to be kicked out again. So. Did
you take anything from your music tech world into that space?
Not really. I mean, that's a tough question. The one thing that I really like in the music tech world, and that's also something that differentiates the music tech world from the music industry world, is that the music industry has learned to live in ecosystems, and the music tech world lives in ecosystems. And so this whole mindset of like working together and doing stuff together is something that I took into this work. Maybe that's something, like talk to people and say, look, you can do that and you can do that. If you help each other, everybody could benefit from it. So this is probably the one thing that I could bring into that space as well.
Other way around, what have you taken from the refugees situation into now music tech?
I learned that you can, from having nothing, you can build something that's quite, there's this Jugaad thing in India, but there's also like these people that came with nothing, they suddenly managed to have like everything, not everything, but there's always a solution to a problem if you have one. And it doesn't matter how big the problem is. If you look for the solution, you can actually solve that. And it doesn't matter. When I talk to music tech startups, I always tell them, look, even if you're like totally bootstrapped now and you think about giving up, if you can't stand it anymore and it's bad for your mental health, then you rather give up. That's really dangerous. But if you're not that far down the road, then just like try to like make a list of things that are bad and that are good, and see which are the good things and how you can combine them to make something good out of that. So, and this is something that I learned from that camp. There were so many people that had actually absolutely nothing, and they kind of like survived, or their mental health survived only because they focused on, okay, it's gonna get better because I have that and I could do that. And so the kind of like the hope and the vision that they kept is something that I try to put into the minds of people I'm talking to.
That word Jugaad comes up a lot in the context of Music Tech Fest, and I know that's something that you've sort of experienced because you worked with Music Tech Fest in 2016 into 2017, and it's something that I sort of brought in from my work in India as well. Do you want to tell a little bit about what Jugaad is and then kind of how it applies in the Music Tech Fest context?
Jugaad is basically taking what is there and building like. In India, it's mostly fixing stuff out of like the stuff that's there. Not buying any new stuff, but fixing things that are broken. But in the terms of music tech, or what kind of like is basically the fundament of a hackathon at Music Tech Fest, where you have all these different elements and there's no really rule what you do with it, but you have them, so you build something and innovate something out of that. And Jugaad is basically that. It's basically taking what's there and innovate out of the stuff that exists.
Right. Yeah. The way we've always kind of thought about it is you may not have all the resources that you need, but you're just going to make it work whatever it takes.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so what's next?
So the Music Tech Germany Association is something that we want to make grow and want to make bigger. And the next thing that, like, I also started a company called Wicked Work, where we do kind of like consultancy and curation for creative technologies that goes beyond music technology, because we say that music. And so the whole creative industries are like, the whole lines are blurring. So you have like film and video and games and music and everything blurs with each other. But all the organizations and companies, they work in their own bubble. So what we're trying to do is with Wicked Work, we're trying to connect the different points in the creative industries with each other, and also with like the innovators from the digital economy, to make them collaborate with each other and build products and services that have a common fundament, but can work in different industries. This is what we do with Wicked Work. And I am working on an online database for music technology, which is called the Music Tech Directory. It's a mixture of like Crunchbase, Resident Advisor, and Angel List, if you want to put it that way. So it's kind of like an online database of everything that is around the world with music technology. So music tech associations, organizations, companies, research institutions. So everyone who works in music tech can sign up, can have a profile there, and can be found by other people, because we think that music tech is a global thing. There's no national borders for music tech innovation. And if you're somewhere in the jungle in Brazil and you're looking for something that might be in France, you probably will never meet this person, and you don't have any access to a network that could like put you in touch with this person. So what we're building now, this global database of music tech, hopefully soon.
Do you think the collaboration thing is ever really going to take off with music tech? Because I know people are really, really super keen on their NDAs. They're really keen on patents, copyright, essentially to keep other people away, keep people from their ideas. Do you think that the advantage of collaboration is starting to take hold?
I mean, you can see it with like all the big companies and the big corporates that now open up their business models and their backends in order to make it open source. And in music tech is something that is essential, because you can't build a product or a service just by yourself. You will never have the whole knowledge and expertise in one field. And you need to find collaborators that bring in the expertise in order to get something done. And with technology being like evolving so fast, there will be always new skills that you need, and if you don't have them, you need to get them from somewhere else. So this is why the only path to success is going to be a collaborative model in the future. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And with there's people out there that now build open source communities around music tech, and so they're trying to help people to innovate with the stuff that they are doing, and also open up new communities for people that haven't been in that space but are interested in helping with the stuff that they're doing. And with the music tech meetup that I'm doing in Berlin all the time, I discovered it all the time, because people from marketing agencies, music industry, developers, there can be a person that is like a manager of a big corporate sitting on a table with someone who hasn't even finished school, but at the same time they can talk with each other because music technology is something that they're both interested in, and that's what they're working on.
So what are the technologies that you're kind of excited about or seeing a real interest in, like AI, 5G, blockchain? Where's it happening? Where's it kicking off?
I think all of these technologies have a right to exist, and all of them is going to have an impact. I'm most excited about augmented reality. I strongly believe that the next revolution after the smartphone revolution that we had in the 90s is going to be an AR revolution. It's going to be totally normal in 10 to 15 years for us to live in a world with an extended reality. And to see all these different product services and approaches to make this world happen, that's the thing that excites me the most. And there's, of course, other technologies that are super interesting, like AI is going to have a big impact on all sorts of spaces in society, but also in music and technology. Blockchain, hopefully, going to have a solution to lead the way to a more transparent and trustworthy music ecosystem, which strongly relies on the openness of the music industry, which is probably going to take a while, but there will also things happening that we don't know yet. And I don't believe really in VR. I think it has a use case in industry 4.0 or in other industries, but for music, the only use case that I see for VR is for people who are disabled or can't attend a concert to have this concert experience. But in any other space, I don't see VR taking off in music.
Okay, and the sort of the ones to watch in the German music tech ecosystem, who's really particularly interesting for you at the moment?
That's hard to pick one of our members, but there's several ones. I mean, there are ones that are already super successful. Soundbrenner with their haptic metronome. I'm a big fan of Mod Devices, which doing an open source approach with like a totally new idea of like building guitar pedals, and also with the Mood UX for like electronic music producers. And what I think what has a big future is like what Johannes from Data Machines did, and what he's doing now. He's building this open source music tech community on the basis of Data Machines. And with the background that he has, and the knowledge and the success that he had with Data Machines, and with the people that are he surrounds himself, I think that could be something that could have a great impact on music technology in general, like not only in Germany but worldwide, because he's just gonna open up a toolbox for people to access.
It sounds like the real action is in things for people to make music with, rather than distribution or promotion or streaming services or even experiential things like AR. Most of what you've mentioned have been about tools for musicians, really.
Correct, because as I said, doing stuff for the music industry is useless as long as the music industry is so reluctant to innovation. And one startup that I'm a big fan of is Marble AR. So Tom, this is actually a story that needs to be told more often, because he won the hackathon at South by 2 years ago. And what really bothers me with hackathons is that at the end of a hackathon, all these great teams are disappearing. The thing that they developed lands in the trash can, and everybody forgets about that. But what he did, he stuck to his partner, and he kept developing the product that he's working on. And what he's doing with Marble AR is he builds a technology where musicians and artists can use the tools that they're using anyway in order to create augmented reality worlds. So in the future, if you enter a venue, the whole venue is going to turn into an AR world that you as a musician can manipulate with like the synthesizers, the controllers, all the stuff that you're working on. So it's basically makes graphics and objects in the AR world accessible for artists. These days, when you have like these tours of U2, it costs millions of dollars, hire an agency to set this thing up. He kind of like puts that down to a level where every DJ and every artist out there is capable of building their own AR world. It might be a bit forward thinking, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to kick off.
Fantastic. Matthias, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Matthias Strobel, President and Founder of Music Tech Germany. And that's the MTF podcast. We're going to be catching up with Matthias and the German music tech community when we curate and present an innovation stage at Musikmesse Frankfurt in April next year. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that event in the coming months. Musikmesse is the largest music trade show in Europe, and MTF's going to bring and showcase the cutting-edge innovation. And in the meantime, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share, like, rate, review, and we'll talk soon. Have a great week. Cheers.